Welcome to Lynn's Warriors. Our mission is simple: protect children from all forms of exploitation and support survivors through truth and actual take actions. Collaboration is always the key to prevent new victims, to educate the public, and help keep our communities safe. Megan Lundstrom is a leading figure in the fight against human trafficking, currently serving as the Chief Executive Officer, CEO of Polaris, the nonprofit organization that operates the United States National Human Trafficking Hotline. And all of you need to keep this number handy: 888 373 7888, 24/7, 365 days a year. They are there for you, and they will connect you to any service providers, give you information, and all will be confidential. But let's get back to Megan. Megan is also a survivor of human trafficking herself, bringing a deeply personal and informed perspective to her role as CEO. Under her leadership, Polaris has seen a pivot toward survivor-centered strategy, intertwining her firsthand experience with policy, systemic reform, and robust, everybody, survivor support. Megan is also the author of The Survivor's Guide to Money, a financial wellness curriculum for survivors of exploitation and trafficking. She's a well-known public figure, a public speaker, an advocate, a published researcher. Oh my goodness, my head is spinning, and has contributed to human trafficking policy. She's done it all. And we're going to get into that. Consultant. She's helping everybody. This is the definition of a true warrior. Megan emphasizes the need to make what's invisible, trafficking dynamics, visible, advocating that we cannot arrest our way out of this, but must combine prevention, education, survivor engagement, and technology. The website, everybody, is polarisproject.org. All of this information will be in the body of the video, so everybody sit back and relax and let us, it is truly an honor, but let us welcome Megan Lundstrom to the Warriors.
Thank you so much, Lynn, and so great to be here today and really excited to have this conversation with you.
Well, I'm the excited one, Megan, and I'm going to have much more of your bio. It is so extensive. We'd be here for 5 hours talking about your bio. So you have done so much incredible work. We're going to get into that a little bit, but I want to start with something. It is your story to tell about yourself, whatever you want to share about yourself. I don't care. It's about you. So share away anything you want to share.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So, I definitely got into anti-trafficking work because as a survivor at the time, living in a community that didn't have any awareness around what human trafficking was, that it was happening in our community, and really no resources for people like me in my community. So I came into the anti-trafficking space realizing that I needed to create the thing that I was looking for, not just for myself, but for others in my community. And I ended up staying in this work. So I've been in this work now for just over a decade. And I think it is so important to center survivor voices in this work and really listen to what survivors are saying we need. But I think it is a great honor. This year, I stepped into this role of CEO at Polaris. And this is the first time in Polaris's history that the organization has been led at senior leadership level by a survivor. We've always been survivor informed and lots of survivors both on staff and engaged with us as consultants. But it is also the first time that the National Human Trafficking Hotline has been survivor led in the same way. So it's a great honor, but I also think that it shows that there has been change in systems, and it is possible for people like me to pursue what we're passionate about and to use our skills, whether that's in anti-trafficking or in other areas of the world, and have a career and have a life that we build for ourselves. So I love that piece. And I also recognize that I have a lot of responsibility in this role, not just as a leader of an organization, but representing impacted communities and making sure that our voices are heard, and that our input is included at all levels in all decisions. So that's really what is most important to me about my story and my journey, is that it is possible for us not just to escape and survive, but to heal and rebuild and achieve the things that we want to.
I mean, excellent. I have to say, Megan, when I started this, and I'm not a survivor, I'm not a victim of anything. I just had a calling. I really call it a calling, like a nun. I kept saying, like, I don't understand what's trickling down to survivors. I kept asking around. I'm here in New York City. I kept saying, "What do you mean you give them a Target gift card?" Like I didn't know. I mean, I have business in my background and all that, but like I didn't understand the dynamics, and that's only 6 years ago when I started. I kept asking a lot of questions, or a lot of survivors were very much into art and music as therapy. I would offer that a lot just through all my contacts and things like that. And then survivors would talk to me and say, they weren't even complaining. They was just like, there's not enough for them, or they're not being heard. And I really we have to make it our mission. There can be no discussion. We do nothing at the Warriors without including survivor voice.
Yeah.
Why would I be allowed to talk about this since I haven't gone through it? Right. And so I am so happy that you have taken over as CEO, and there have been even in a short amount of time, so many positive changes and so much excitement around this that it's just absolutely wonderful. I want to ask you, well, give us the mission of Polaris, but also how has your experience, I'm asking you kind of loaded questions, but how has your experience also as a survivor, how has that reshaped? I mean, you touched upon it a little bit, what you're doing now at Polaris.
Yeah, so Polaris exists to combat and end modern slavery and empower survivors on our journeys. And so there's kind of three pieces of that. The first piece is Polaris has always historically, over the last 23 years, connected victims and survivors to the resources and services that we need. And so what most people know is that we do that through the National Human Trafficking Hotline, but we also do that through our workers' rights platform, which is Nanechka, excuse me. And so that is doing outreach and engagement with agricultural workers and making sure they know about their resources and services that are available to them. And also through the Resilience Fund, which is a direct cash assistance program that we just wrapped our pilot, and we're looking at kind of the next phase of right now. So that's the first bucket of activities that Polaris does. The second is through doing exceptional work, we have access to data and intelligence. And what does it look like for us to analyze that data and then kind of feed into this third bucket, which is to equip and activate the field. So anti-trafficking, as you know, Lynn, and I'm sure most of your listeners know, not one person or one stakeholder group or one organization can solve human trafficking. There's lots of pieces. It's very complex. It takes all of us doing something. And so Polaris, we really recognize that we can't do all the things. And so how do we equip our partners and other stakeholders in the field with that data and intelligence to do their jobs and to do their part of human trafficking work? So just as a couple examples, we have our financial intelligence unit. And so we work with financial institutions and other corporate partners to make sure that private companies know how to recognize indicators of trafficking, whether that's an online platform or in their supply chain. We also partner with law enforcement, and so passing on tips to them about trafficking that's happening in their jurisdiction so that they can follow up and investigate those reports. So those are just a couple examples. And I think, survivor leadership shows up across all of the activities that we do. So we are always listening to survivors. Our origin story around the hotline, the idea of a hotline came from a survivor who said, I need one number that I can call anywhere in the United States, no matter where my trafficker takes me. I need to be able to call one place, and I need to know that it's a safe place and that they can connect me to what I need in that moment. And so that has been the culture of Polaris always. So the financial intelligence unit, that was started because we saw that survivors having to testify in court against their trafficker was incredibly traumatizing, and it doesn't always guarantee a successful outcome for the survivor. It doesn't always give them the justice that they're looking for. And so by helping financial institutions and other corporate partners identify bad actors and increase their safety measures within their company or on their platforms, we hope to reduce the need for survivors to have to testify in open court against their traffickers. So I think that culture has always existed at Polaris, and I'm really excited to talk more about what that has looked like across all of our programs, and really thinking about what is this next phase of anti-trafficking work, and what does it look like as survivors move into positions of decision-making and leadership. What does it look like for the movement to truly become survivor-led? Because there's many of us that are in these positions now, and how much more are we going to be able to get done and have such a larger impact because we are in those positions of decision making. So I feel like that was just the tip of.
I feel like you stole all my questions, but that's good. That's a good thing. But it just came to me, Megan. A lot of people have said to me, what happens what can somebody expect if they call? Let's just start with this one. If they call the hotline number, can somebody just call and ask general information like, I think my neighbor may be involved, or I live in so-and-so place, and I'm thinking maybe my sister. Tell us what would happen when somebody calls the number. Because people always say to me, I'm afraid. I'm like, afraid of what? Just call. You know?
Yeah. And it is scary, right? Like just calling an 888 number and who's on the other side? Is my call being recorded? Are they going to think the questions that I'm asking are stupid? Like there's so many things that can go through somebody's mind, whether they're just a community member or they're a survivor that's, taking that first step and feeling really vulnerable in that moment. So we actually have some materials, and I can send them to you, but it's called Anatomy of a Call. And what we really want people to understand in those materials is what to expect. So we have some mock calls that some of our hotline team has put together so that people can listen to different kind of scenarios of people calling in and what that sounds like. But we also have just a very simple kind of, step 1, step 2 process. So the first part of every single call is a safety check. So we make sure that the person is safe in that moment, that they're not in imminent danger. And if they are, we make sure to get them rerouted to the appropriate authorities or response mechanism, such as 911, because the hotline is not an emergency response system. We are a resource for communities and survivors, and we can connect people. But definitely if somebody's needing help right that moment, we want to get them connected to their local resources. From there, we talk through mandated reporting and confidentiality. So any disclosures of a potential victim that is a minor or is in imminent danger to themselves or others, those things we are legally mandated to report to law enforcement. And so we make sure that the caller understands what that process is, what to expect, so that they're not feeling caught off guard that in the event we do have to make that report. From there, we also talk more about confidentiality. So we don't record the call. We really are focused on what information do we need in order to connect to that person with the most appropriate resources for them in that moment. So we're not just asking a host of questions for the sake of asking questions, but really to understand what their needs are and who is best suited to meet those. So somebody that's calling in to maybe ask questions about, I think I saw something and I'm not sure. Our advocates are trained to ask questions and follow up with more detail about, tell me what you saw. Can you describe the situation? Can you describe the individuals that you observed? Can you provide any details of that? And then we talk through what that process looks like of collecting that information and then passing it on to local law enforcement to follow up on. But people also call in, like you said, because they just want more general information about what human trafficking is, or maybe they want to volunteer in their community and they don't know what organizations are there, or it may be a survivor that is still really thinking about their situation and they're not sure, what their next steps are. What do they want to do? What options are available? So our hotline advocates do a lot of what's called safety planning, which is just talking through those options. Where are you right now in terms of the decisions that you're making, the resources that you have available, the questions that you're asking, and how can we help just answer some of those questions and give you a little bit more information to think about. So that's what callers can expect. Obviously, each conversation varies a little bit based on who the caller is and what they're looking for, but every single call has those kind of basic pieces to it.
Yeah, because I've had people, Megan, say to me like, "Well, what if I call and I'm wrong?" And I'm like, "Well, because they're scared of that piece." I'm trying to get everybody, Megan, like to open up. There's no being wrong. It's better to report or say you saw or heard something. Am I correct? Than not say anything. Nobody's getting in trouble. Am I correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and I think that's a really valid question. So years ago, before coming to Polaris, I sat in on like a child welfare mandated reporting training. So as a service provider at the time, we had to go through the mandated reporting training. And that was a question that came up a lot during that training of, well, I'm not sure, like, I don't know this situation well enough, or I don't have enough details in this moment to make a definitive decision of what I'm observing. Or I'm not an expert on this specific, abuse or exploitation. And I think what the trainer really highlighted is it's not our job in that moment to be the expert. There are experts on the other side of the line. So when people call in and they're not sure or they're feeling hesitant about calling in, I think it's important to remember you don't have to be the expert. We have experts that are answering the phone, and we partner with other experts who help make those determinations. So we collect the information. We know the questions to ask of callers. And then we also know who to pass that information along to, who can continue to make those determinations. But no matter what, even if something is not, maybe it's not trafficking, maybe it is child abuse and neglect, or maybe it's domestic violence. It could be another crime. It could be some other instance of something unsafe or unsavory happening. And the important thing is that the person who observed it took action and called somewhere to make sure that the authorities are aware and could respond and make sure that the people involved in that situation are safe.
Yeah, I just think, Megan, that, we live in a new world, 2025, everybody, we have to be the eyes and ears. We have to, I know it's a lot to ask, looking out for everybody else, but we have to really have this mindset of this is how it is. I just want to go back on one thing. What if a 12-year-old girl called? What would happen? Or a boy, what would the scenario be for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is a part of when somebody calls in and we go through that mandated reporting piece. We talk through the caller situation and anyone under the age of 18, because we are a mandated reporter. We do have to make a report of that call. So it is, again, we also err on the side of caution, right? So if there is any concern of, is kind of following that same logic of we're not the experts here, it is better safe than sorry that if somebody calls in and they are a suspected victim, or they know a victim that is under the age of 18, it's our duty to report that to the appropriate authorities and allow those authorities to do their due diligence from that point forward.
Now, I'm going to ask you a big question before we get into all the change that's happening. Listen, let's be real for a minute. There are a lot of critics out there that are always saying things like, or arguing that nonprofits get stuck in a lot of bureaucracy, right? Instead of solutions.
Sure.
I've seen that myself. This is something I'm always about. We need to take action, solutions, plug in the holes. That's what I'm always saying. And it's there, like it's there to do. We have to do it, kind of thing. Find the resources, do it, right? What do you say under your leadership? Walk us through this. How are you going to change that kind of mindset, that kind of thinking, and move forward. I have seen in the last few months all of the great progress Polaris has been making. So walk us through that kind of thing a little bit.
Yeah, so the National Human Trafficking Hotline is federal. It's a federal mandate under the Trafficking Victims Protection Act. So the hotline has to exist by law, and through the TVPA and that mandate, there's also federal funding that's appropriated for it. So right now we're in the middle of the recompete process. So every 5 years, organizations can bid or recompete for also become the operator of the National Human Trafficking Hotline. So I think one of the things that is kind of a little known secret, but I don't know, there's no reason for it to be a secret. But Polaris, so it actually costs far more than $5 million a year to operate the National Human Trafficking Hotline. And so Polaris fundraises the difference to be able to fully operate the hotline. And so the hotline is also funded through private donations and foundations and corporate partners as well. All that said, I do think that there are a lot of advancements right now, particularly with technology, and thinking about how can we leverage technology to be more efficient with our resources and still continue to meet, the increasing volume of calls and the increasing needs of communities and victims and survivors. But how do we do that with technology? So we have several projects right now that are in the works that we have been piloting with the use of AI to analyze the data on the back end of things, and also to do some of that safety planning that I mentioned. So a chat bot, that is something that is very needed, but also there are a lot of folks that maybe don't feel safe calling the hotline right away, or would feel better kind of typing it out and kind of talking with the use of AI and feel like that's a safer option for them. So I think those are some of the things that we're working on right now, and always, I firmly believe in being a good steward of the resources that we have. Regardless of where they come from, we need to be good stewards of them. And so our team is going through a organization restructure right now, really looking at where can we streamline things, how can we centralize our operations and infrastructure even more so that we can continue to use our resources more and more efficiently, and particularly right now as we see a decrease in funding for anti-trafficking efforts. I think that's another big piece around efficiency is we don't need to all compete for the same resources to do the same thing. How can we come together and collaborate and support one another so that each of us as organizations and advocates are supported and well resourced in the work that we're doing, but we're not kind of, cannibalizing. I think those are some of the things that I'm working on around funding and sustainability and just being good stewards.
It's always that old funding, Megan. It's always getting in the way of everything, the dollar signs. But, I'm glad you're right now all around that. But we can leverage AI for good. I would think AI would be such a tremendous for, this trafficking movement, right? To analyze information like this, right? As opposed to people, man or woman power, to root out, bad players, whatever. Two, as long as the chatbot behaves itself, you know what I'm saying? Gives the correct information type thing. Somebody might actually, I always like to say 30 and under, they're kind of born as digital, not a real person, maybe, and be more free. We have to think, I have to think of the mindset of how like they think 30 and under. But I think it could be such a tremendous money saver, time saver. And I want all of us to focus on the good for AI in this anti-trafficking movement, because I think we can get in there. I'm digressing a little bit, find servers in other countries, easily and all this. And really, we talk about ending, right? Disrupting, financial, you mentioned earlier, all of those systems the AI can root out. And we have to really welcome it and leverage it for good. So that's the push. I'm chipping away on that end of it, because with any good, there's always bad. We just have to accept that. But I think it's a tremendous asset for the trafficking movement. Now, let me ask you about the Resilience Fund. That is working now, and it's providing direct cash.
Yes. So
now tell us like this a little bit.
Yeah. This is, I feel like all of the things that we do at Polaris are so exciting, but I actually came to Polaris initially near and dear to my heart because I had the honor of building the program from the ground up over the last 2 years. So Polaris 2 years ago came out with the National Survivor Study, and it is the largest study at this time of survivors in the U.S. and well-being and outcomes and experiences of survivors of trafficking. And one of the biggest findings that came out of that study was that 43% of survivors, so that's individuals who have exited their trafficking situation, are living on less than $25,000 a year and supporting families of 2 to 3 on that income. And most survivors have at least $25,000 in debt, not including a mortgage. So if you think about whatever your annual income is for the year, think about having that equivalent in debt. Like that's just, it's astronomical. It feels like, when would I ever pay this off, right? And I think, so that finding was very eye-opening in terms of answering the question of, is what we're doing as a movement, as a field, is it working? If survivors are really still existing with the same vulnerabilities for trafficking. So we know that poverty is one of the biggest risk factors for trafficking in the first place. And a lot of us are raising children now in those same circumstances. And so as survivors, many of us are looking at our children knowing that they're at risk for the exact same thing that we experienced. So in survivors calling in and asking for, I need help with my rent payment this month. I need help getting my car fixed. I need to pay for childcare for my child so that I can go to work. These are very real requests that come in every single day. And in many communities, there aren't resources that exist for these needs. And so we see a lot of realized that there really isn't one program or service that could meet all of these needs. And direct cash is one of the most cost-effective ways to address this, but also, bringing in my work with Survivor's Guide to Money and financial literacy. As survivors of trafficking, we've experienced some of the most horrific financial abuse out there. And so part of healing from financial abuse is being able to make choices with our own money and get to experience what that feels like, that I get to make this decision. I know how to take care of myself and my family. So that's where the Resilience Fund. We just did a pilot, an 18-month pilot. And so that provided up to $500 a month for 18 months to a cohort of survivors across the U.S. And again, I feel like I could talk about this all day, but Lynn, I do want to share this very exciting data point. So at mid-program, so one of the questions that we asked every single month was, were you able to make ends meet this month? And if not, did you have to take it? So at the beginning of the pilot, 60% of our respondents said they were having to take exploitative work opportunities in order to make ends meet. At mid-program, that had dropped to 25%. And so I'm in the process of analyzing the data for the final report, which will hopefully be out soon. But really, like, just anecdotally, we kind of saw that trend stay through the end of the program. And so what that means is this cash is preventing exploitation and trafficking. And so my bigger question is, what would it look like if we know that this can prevent trafficking? What are the conversations that we need to be having about identifying people who are at very high risk for trafficking and making sure that they have that economic stability? Through that pilot, we also saw an increase in employment. So finding jobs and maintaining jobs, we saw folks able to find and maintain housing. We saw individuals start education programs and complete education programs. So we saw so many positive outcomes for $500 a month for 18 months. So really exciting program, and I think there's so much promise.
I mean,
to
Megan,
it.
that's excellent. This is excellent news because, it's always, I feel like a lot of, I call it slapping the Band-Aid on.
Yeah.
And then, I ask a lot of questions just the way I am. I'm like, but what about where it began? Or we could say root causes.
Yeah.
What about getting in there to prevent all of this, which is exactly what you're talking about. So you got to put some bells on and be running all over the country. No, because it's infectious when it's positive and it's good information, and you have the stats that are proving $500. So everybody's got to get on board with this.
Absolutely. And I think it was, I can say confidently, I don't remember the exact number, but about half of our pilot cohort were parents. And so you think about this impact and preventing trafficking for the next generation too. Again, when we want to talk about like being good stewards of our resources and how do we be efficient with the use of resources, how do we have the biggest impact? I think this program is a really strong case that, $500 a month, and we are helping survivors go to therapy, get jobs, go to school, maintain housing, and we're breaking that cycle for their children. I think that's just incredible.
So this being said, Megan, how are we going to get the, let's say, what should I call them? Policymakers. Like, how are we going to get, are they coming more on board? Are they realizing what this really is all about? Because it seems like there's so much red tape. You've got the proof. You've got the proof right here. It's like a no-brainer. Let's just get it going, and this works, and let's increase it, and let's get everybody on board. Why is there resistance? I don't even know if this is a question for you, but like the resistance can't be there when we have proof that something works and empowers people and engages them, and educates them, and then prevents. You pointed out children, right? Because nobody in New York wants to talk about familial trafficking. Like, they just won't talk about it. It's like, okay, but that's the majority. If we could get in there and talk about it, and you're preventing it with all of this. But why are our policy, what don't they understand? I don't even know if you want to weigh in on that one. I just want to slap them around. That's me saying that, not you.
I was going to say, I feel like we probably need another 90 minutes to unpack all of it. I mean, it is very complex. I think, really at the base level, it's making sure that people who can make those changes at the policy level know that things like this exist and that they're working. So making sure we have that data, but also listening to survivors, right? So making sure that survivor voices are represented, whether that's formally through testimony and advocacy efforts, but also in communications campaigns and just narrative. What are the stories that are out there, and making sure that survivors get to share those stories about the impact and the needs that they have and their families. And I really think the more survivors have the mic, the better. And then when we combine that with that education and awareness of policymakers, I think that we can have a lot of success.
Well, I'm just throwing that out there. I do walk the halls of Congress a lot and harass people. I mean, go in their offices. And I'm going to be adding all this information you're telling me about, because anything really positive. I like to share with everybody, and I think this is something that is so fantastic. All of this that's happening. What do you think? Give us the state of survivors today overall. What could you say about them? Because when I talk to a lot of them, they seem depressed. They seem down and out. They seem like, nobody's listening to them. Just give us the landscape today, because I want the public to understand. I want our warriors out there to understand. We all need to be a part of this. And Megan, I venture to say we all know somebody. Like you said, this is a very complex subject matter, but it intersects with domestic violence, with child abuse. It's all like this wheel with the big spokes. It's all going around crazy. What's the landscape? What you think the landscape for them today is?
Yeah. So I think just kind of reiterating the National Survivor Study of 43% of survivors are living on less than $25,000 a year and supporting families of 2 to 3 individuals on that income. I like that, to me, answers how I am very blessed and very privileged. But I've been there. I know what that's like as a single parent, to not know how you're going to feed your kids the next day, how you're like passing the tank so that I can get to my job, so that I can get to my college class. It's so stressful. It is very depressing. It's very discouraging. So I think overall, right now, what survivors are needing is we're needing jobs. We need employment. We need affordable housing. We need affordable childcare. We need transportation. And, I think survivors are some of the hardest working people. We were exploited for our labor, for our work, right? At the end of the day. And so we are hard workers. We know how to work hard. And we just want those opportunities. We just want that chance for ourselves and our families. So I think that's really important right now, especially in the nonprofit space, again, with funding in the anti-trafficking space. We've seen a decline over several years. With all of the federal funding cuts, we're seeing a lot of positions are eliminated. A lot of, I'm a consultant for the State Department. So a lot of us have lost, that revenue source. We just don't have contract and consulting work right now. And
I have to interrupt you, Megan. Is it coming back though? I keep asking. Everything's cut. And then I'm asking in Washington, I'm like, okay, I understand cutting out the fat. I get it. But is anybody vetting to put monies back in where monies are needed? Because I already know a couple of organizations across the U.S., they had to go under. They could exist on 2 or 3 months. It's like ex-law enforcement, good people, boots on the ground. You may never have heard of them doing community work, and they've had to fold up. Do we know? Because I keep asking. Do we know anybody putting these monies back in? I'm not getting any answers.
I don't know either. I can say the hotline's referral directory. So we have about 3,000 service providers and law enforcement in our directory. And our team just did kind of a little quick run. And every year we see a few organizations, close their doors or they shift their scope of services. And then we see a few organizations that are new to the space or have, new funding to serve trafficking survivors. And so over time, we see an increase, even though there's a few that drop off each year. This year, we have seen a significant decrease, and we're not seeing any new organizations come into this space. And that's really scary. So to answer your question, I don't know. And I think, both on the employment side and the resources and services side, that's really, really concerning. So I remain hopeful because I'm the eternal optimist. But I think, we have to come together. I think, years ago, there was a woman, I was in a working group through the National Human Trafficking Training and Technical Assistance Center. And we were all sitting there working through this like very complex question. And our guest speaker came in and we were like, well, what should we do? Who should we ask? And she said, there is no one else. You are the help. You have to figure this out. That's why you're being tasked with answering this question. And she has just come to mind so often recently of like, there is no one else. It's us. So it's you, Lynn, it's me, it's Polaris, it's other listeners. It's us. There is no one else. And I think we need to operate in kind of that mindset of, if no, there is no one else coming to figure this out, we have to be the ones to figure it out.
It's funny you said this, because I'm always like, if like not us, who?
Yeah.
And I say that respectfully, you know what I mean? But it's like, if not us, because although I talk about the red tape in Washington and advocating for things, in the meantime, in the communities, at that ground level, people are still being exploited.
Yeah.
And we have to keep that in mind. And I think, Megan, it kind of gets like, it's almost become like normalized. People get habituated, like human trafficking, kind of like in one ear out the other. They don't really stop to think about what that actually means. I actually maintain the public does not understand trafficking, the word trafficking. They do not. They understand Epstein, Diddy, Taken with Liam Neeson, or any of that kind of stuff, right? They don't actually understand. Your daughter can be in her bedroom and she's on a device. She's being trafficked. Okay. Yeah. Your neighbor is selling his wife. Like, they don't. And I understand it's dark and ugly. People don't want to. I've done speeches, and before I go on, that people are like, don't scare anybody. I'm like, well, I got to give some facts and reality here. People have to know what's going on. I think people should be.
Yeah.
They got to wake up. This is a national crisis. This is a national security crisis as well, with all of this, right? Organized crime, other thefts that traffickers get their victims to get involved with. It's a very complex issue. So I think we really need, in 2025, like, realistic talk. This is what it is. We have solutions. This is what we need. I want to ask you one thing. I really thought when I started this, and I had to, I cannot do what I'm doing. Collaboration would be easy. I really thought I know, as you laugh, Megan, I thought everybody would be on board. This is the one issue, whether you're right, left, up, down, whatever you are, nothing like, oh, we're going to come on board for this one. I still to this day am amazed at the resistance of, I understand people fighting for certain funding. I understand this one doesn't like that one, whatever. But we're forgetting it's trickling down to people, kids. And if we all would come together and just help each other, how much more we could accomplish. And I'm starting to see a breakthrough in this. I'm starting to see it open up, okay, which makes me so happy, because I want to give the public, there is a lot of hope out there, but we need them. We need them to come along, whether they volunteer with you, whether they donate, whether they share your information. We're going to have everything in the body of the video so they could take their time and read. We ask everybody to share our discussion, because if we help one person a day, Megan, I think we've done our jobs. We have to look at it like one person. We've done our jobs, and we keep going. Let me ask you, finish up with, if you could tell lawmakers or the public right now one thing, this is a tough one too, about human trafficking.
Yeah.
I'm digressing again, but we talk a lot about sex trafficking. We don't talk as much about labor trafficking. And we have to, it's a problem too.
Yep.
We have to talk about all of it. What would you want to tell them that they resist hearing right now, that they need to hear right now?
Yeah. Oh, so many things. But I do think of, survivors years ago. So I, really cut my teeth in anti-trafficking work, doing Human Trafficking 101 education in my local community. And so I got asked a lot from people in the room, like, what's one thing that I can do? I'm a stay-at-home mom, or I'm a teacher, or I'm a nurse, or, I'm a lawyer, but I can't, I'm not going to just, quit everything and go directly into anti-trafficking work, but what can I be doing? And so I connected with a survivor group, because I really wanted to hear, like, what is the one thing? What is the one thing? And I've heard this echoed in other groups of survivors too, who are coming from very diverse backgrounds of, where they grew up, whether it was urban or rural, whether they experienced labor trafficking or sex trafficking. And I hear the same thing everywhere. And it is, make eye contact with people on the street, ask them how they're doing, smile, like just treat people with dignity. And I think, there is this piece of just like we're all on this spinning rock in space. And let's be kind to one another. And I also think it's really important to think about, if there is somebody that's in need, they haven't had a meal that day, they don't know where they're going to sleep tonight, they just lost their job and they don't know what's next. Those are the moments that traffickers step in with a promise and a plan. Whether it's a legitimate plan or not is a whole other conversation, but those are the moments where traffickers step in. And so if traffickers are doing that 10, 15, 20 times a day, whether that's in person or they're sending messages online, they're doing that all day. And so each of us can step in one time a day. So I think that's the piece with, just everybody, the general public, is where's my one place that I'm going to step up today? Whether that's speaking out or calling in a report or, making a meal for the single mom down the street, like whatever that looks like, what's your one thing for today where you're going to see somebody in your community and meet a need. And it could just be a smile. Maybe somebody just needs a smile and to hear, how are you doing today? I hope you have had a really good weekend.
Yeah. And people have to listen.
Yes.
They have to listen to people.
Yes.
Right. I just thought I'd throw that one in because I find that problematic in society today. But, it goes back to what I said earlier. Everybody can and really must do something.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, this is, in my opinion, this is a national crisis escalating and we have solutions. So now we have to make them work, take action, and everybody has to participate. Give me a final thought. Any final thoughts for us and our warriors? And promise me you'll come back. There's a lot to talk about, and there are a lot of updates, especially with Polaris. Things are rocking and rolling in that place. So I want to have constant, updates about things, Megan. I want the public to know they are welcome to call for information. They are welcome to call if they need help. Open. We are here for people. You are there for them, right? Yeah, I want them to feel free, that they have a great place. They can seek out resources, just information. So we'll do this again. I promise you. Please.
Absolutely.
Give us a final thought, because I could talk to you for 20 hours.
Yeah, same.
Easily.
And happy to come back. Absolutely. Yeah. Check back in with us in 30 days and we'll have a lot of new.
I am definitely doing that. Now what do you think? Because you pointed something out. People do always say, like, what can I do?
Yeah.
And everybody can do something. I'm a broken record.
Yes. Everybody can do something. And I think, one of the things too, especially folks that have maybe are in the anti-trafficking field, have maybe called the hotline or thought about calling the hotline, Polaris remains committed to listening to our stakeholders. And we can't do our job without stakeholder feedback and without our stakeholders feeling supported and heard. And so if you have questions, if you have concerns, if you are interested in learning more, please reach out to us. We want to have those conversations. We want to hear ideas and feedback. So the door is open, so to speak, and we really want to hear from folks. So
yeah, and honor our warriors hashtag, everybody. Community creates change, because that's what Megan and her team are building, and we couldn't be more thrilled. You are music to our ears. There's such great success happening, and I know a lot more is coming down the pike. The website, everybody, polarisproject.org. Megan's also on LinkedIn. I'll have everything again in the body of the video, a link to your book. I know you have a media guide on the website, so that's good for everybody. I want more media. I know some of you are listening because I know what you do. You steal my information out there. You are to have Megan on to talk about all this. But I want to say, really, Megan, on behalf of Lynn's Warriors and everybody listening, that thank you. Your courage, your candor, your enthusiasm, because I go back to, that's infectious. And we want to infect everybody. That sounds terrible, but we want to get them on board. We hear so much negative, and there is, but there's also so much good. So we want to share the good. And also you've shared your own lived experience with the public. And that's absolutely extraordinary. You are really a force for change. I'm seeing it, I'm hearing it, and you're leading and centered on survivors. Everybody in this field, can call it a field, whatever, needs to have a survivor at that table, needs to have them in their organization, needs to ask them the questions, right? We cannot do this talking around them.
Yeah.
But we are so grateful that you took all this time to spend with us today. I'm going to hold you to coming back because I know you
Yes.
have a lot of new things coming up. And I want to, it reminds us, Megan, that human trafficking, it's not just some distance thing out there in some other country, which that's what people say to me most of the time. I thought it was happening there. And if
Sure.
they're saying, I'm in the middle of New York City and they're saying this to me all the time, but it's touching every community across America. And your leadership truly is without peer. And it shows us, Megan, when survivors are leading the way, we get the job. Well, I should say, you get the job done. I just tag along, try to help you out and steal your information so I can inform our warriors what good things are going on. But
Yeah.
thank you again, Megan. We stand with you. We support Polaris, and we'll keep fighting to make sure every voice is heard alongside you, and every voice and every survivor is valued. So promise me we will speak again soon. And thank you. Thank you for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Megan.